All right. Waiting for your thumbs up there, Tanisha. All right, perfect. So if you want to start the recording, would be great. Appreciate everybody joining us today for the YDC Youth Committee meeting. And so before we get started, we don't have anybody that is elected as chair. So wondering, Nate or Yoseline, wondering if you wouldn't mind getting us started, and then we'll go through a round of inductions. Just need you to call the meeting to order to make it official.
Hi, I'm Yoselin de la Garza, and I call this meeting to order at 1:03.
Awesome. Thank you. Well, my name is Paul Sell, Associate Director here at Youth Development Oregon. Appreciate everybody joining us today. I'm going to turn it over to Tanasia to do a roll call of our committee members, and then we'll do a round of introductions for everybody else. So, committee members, if you can just say here and then introduce yourself briefly, that would be great. Tanasia.
Okay. Daniela Avila, Yoselin de la Garza Hernandez Lopez,
Here.
Nate Lantanzio,
Here.
Jeff Parker, Savannah Rolates, Alexander Robinson, Hannah Shorter, and Janelle Theobald. That's it.
All right. Thank you, Tanasia. And Joshua Davis, I just want to acknowledge that I appreciate you joining us today and joining our conversation for the committee meeting. I don't know if anything has been officially added to the committee meeting yet, so appreciate you being here today.
Happy to be here. Thank you.
Awesome. All right, so we'll go ahead and get it started. So today's meeting is really focused on our youth-led grants and our youth committee processes. Just to kind of summarize, we have a lot of YDO staff on the call today, so I'm going to pause and have everybody introduce themselves from YDO. Sally, if you don't mind, I'll turn it over to you.
Awesome. I'm Sally Deck. I'm a grant manager at YDO and also the staff member helping support the youth committee and some new youth engagement across our across all of YDO. And I'm going to pass it to Jared.
Good afternoon, everyone. Jared Shaw, also grant manager at YDO, and I am here sort of as backup support for the committee, so I'll just be sort of listening and taking notes. I'll pass it to Tanisha.
Thanks. Tanasia Bishop, Youth Grants Administrative Specialist here, and I'll pass it to Melissa.
Nisha, hi everyone, welcome. Melissa Gallardo. I provide executive support to Brian and the YDD staff, and also administrative support to the council and committees. Thanks. I'll pass it to Brian.
Thanks so much, Melissa. Good afternoon, everybody. Brian Detman, Youth Development Director. Just wanted to sign in and just say appreciation for everyone in attendance, committee members, guests, council members, etc. I'm not gonna stick around only because y'all have more than enough of us too. But I just wanted to pop in. I know that there's looks like a good agenda, some great conversations, and I know have happened in advance of today's meeting. So just again, appreciation. Have a great meeting. I'll stay on for a few minutes, but uh, just yeah, thanks for taking the time on this Tuesday afternoon.
All right, thanks, Brian. So actually, I want to circle back and maybe have the council members or the committee members introduce themselves just briefly. So Nate, do you mind if I just turn it over to you to introduce who you are and who you currently work for and represent?
For sure. Yeah, thank you so much. Hello, everyone. My name is Nate Latanzio. I use he, him pronouns, and I'm a Youth Advisory Council Coordinator at Youth Era, which is like a youth empowerment nonprofit organization. Excited to be here. Thank you so much.
Awesome. And official YDC member. Sorry, I should have prefaced that. That was my fault.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Good catch.
Absolutely. Yoselin, do you mind introducing yourself?
No, my name is Jocelyn de la Garza Hernandez Lopez. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm a senior communication specialist for OHSU.
Awesome. Thank you. As well as a council member. And I know Joshua Davis is working to become a committee member for us. So Joshua, do you mind maybe introducing yourself?
Sure. My name's Joshua. I work at AY as the grant manager and assistant CFO. Oh God, what else was in the? I'm sorry, it's late in the day for me and I didn't have lunch.
That is totally fine. AYA is Alternative Youth Activities, correct?
Yes.
Perfect. Down in Coos Bay. So appreciate you joining us today. Those that are not on the committee and visiting just for the conversation, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourselves in the chat, would be great. Because you can see on the agenda, it doesn't. There's only a few agenda items, but we definitely want to engage and with our committee and council members around this project that we call youth-led grants. Just as a reminder, this youth-led grants project was appointed to the Youth Committee Council back in September of 2025 to find a way to involve both our youth council as well as youth in general in our grant making process or receiving grants. And so just to kind of recap where Sally and I have come through over the past couple, I'd say past couple months, we've had the opportunity to meet with most of our youth committee members talking about what they would like to see in youth-led grants. We really started with the idea of what does it even mean to you, because it got assigned to this committee to work on. And so what we're going to spend a majority of today's meeting talking about is just what Sally and I learned regarding that, and then hopefully we can have support for the youth committee members here on the call to to begin working on a process to take forward to the YDC meeting in June. So with that, Sally, I'm looking at my notes. Am I the one starting or are you starting with the goals?
I think I'm starting.
All right, perfect. There we go. Oh, actually, Sally, before we do, I do want to just preface, I want to recognize we have a lot of YD staff on the call. And part of the reason we do that is we do usually have two admin because as you can imagine, it gets really hard to work on helping aid in conversations with committees or with the council. So that's where Tanasia and Melissa come on. And then also because Jared and I will be doing the primary work around writing the process for YDC approval as well as the RFA. Wanted to make sure that Jared, he's behind the scenes. We call him our consistency monitor, but he works across all of our RFAs, and so he'll be helping me write the actual RFA document. So I wanted him to hear the conversation should people have insight on that. You also, because we do have quite a few guests on here, we'll kind of monitor it. Obviously, we want to make sure that our council and committee members have the opportunity to speak and provide insight, but you can definitely add comments to the chat, and we'll pause for public comment towards the end of the meeting. Sally, did I forget anything about that intro that we talked about?
No, I literally had those 3 bullet points.
Sorry about that. My bad.
Yeah, no. I was for those of you who may not know Paul's schedule, he is traveling across the state to do community conversations, and so he is en route. He's in travel status, and so I had all these notes in case Paul had travel snafus of any sort. So that's why I had the 3 bullet points. I think that we are covered. I think the only other piece that I would say is that the way that just the structure of our committees within the YDC mean that committees get to have discussion and input. We are holding this meeting so that we can gather input from the committee members about kind of where we're headed with the youth-led grants. And the committee then will have a report at the YDC meeting in June, and decisions get made at YDC meetings. And so this is a conversation. And so just to reiterate that we are gathering information in this meeting, and yeah, so go ahead and drop comments in the chat, and then there is public comment at the end of the meeting. Any questions? Any thoughts, concerns?
Thank you, Sally. And I just want to remind you, we can have guests raise their hand and ask questions during the meeting, but we just want to give priority to our committee members. So thank you, Brian, for that reminder. That's why I was looking at my phone. I was like, oh, Brian's giving me a reminder. I forgot about that. So thank you.
Perfect. Excellent. Then I am just going to jump in. I'm going to talk about some of our overarching goals, and then I'll pass the mic back to Paul to talk about the suggested scope and kind of the type of project that we're looking at. So our overarching goals, looking at the next biennium, 27-29, and the biennium beyond, 29-31, what we're hoping for is to have some increased flexibility around funding for youth-led projects, specifically supporting youth furthest from opportunity. And that's a phrase that you'll hear YDO use pretty frequently. It is a defined term in our RFAs. And when we talk about youth furthest from opportunity, we are intending to be as inclusive as possible, recognizing those who have trouble completing high school, have trouble or need additional support, have additional barriers to access an opportunity for workforce development as well. We're also looking to increase funding that would directly go to support youth in historically marginalized youth populations and communities. And again, that touches to our equity statement, our mission and vision. So this is still in alignment and consistent with that. We're also looking to create a funding stream that's easily accessed by youth in support of youth-led opportunities, and hoping to have a grant process that can be replicated. So for the short term, for right now, we're in the middle of the 25-27 biennium. So we're looking at the 26-27 year. We're looking to have a simplified grant process that can go through the YDC, and will issue about $150,000 in grants that will be used by June 30th, 2027. So these are funds that will be available for the second half of the biennium. And that we are looking to provide grants to organizations in support of youth-led projects. So really looking at youth having an idea, and then youth leading the planning and the supporting and the implementation of an activity that will be provided for the community or the youth who are served in that organization, potentially also for additional recruiting and things of that nature, but that it is fundamentally it is a youth idea, and that the youth are the ones who will be following through on the actual project. So the YDC Youth Committee's involvement is about process and scope, and having some of those like parameters and guardrails around the projects, and how we hope to see these grants evolve in biennia to come. And we are hoping to have as much engagement as possible from young people, from participating organizations through the entire process. So aiming to have young people involved in the ideation, and that's something that Paul and I have been working on a one-on-one basis, working with some individual youth committee members and other youth to be able to have as many ideas as possible come through. And then hoping to have young people involved in all of the steps of this process, and then also recognizing the very real need to get these dollars out the door as efficiently as possible and distributed as equitably as possible. So right now, the working name for this grant initiative is merely Youth-Led Grants. So this is something that will be within the grant portfolio, and that we will refer to it as youth-led grants. And that name may change, as those of you who are familiar with YDO grants have seen some of our grant initiative names change. But that the meat of the matter on this one really is that young people have good ideas, and we are hoping to fund those good ideas that young people have and that young people can execute on. Paul, I'm going to pass it to you. Uh-oh, Paul froze. All right, I'm going to give Paul another second, and then I'm just going to keep talking. All right, like we said, travel status. Oh yeah, we maybe lost him entirely. He'll come back. So what we are looking for on the actual scope and the project type, criteria that we have so far. And again, like we've got some room to massage this. But what we're looking for are the youth are directly involved and have oversight across the whole project, and that the youth-led impact can be identified and reported upon, right? That the organization would be able to report on this. So right now we're looking at a variety of ideas, and the what we're aiming for is to have a flexible enough shape to the ideas that we can invite a lot of different project proposals, and also that folks are still like within the parameters of what we're hoping for. Um, okay, looks like Paul is rejoining. Paul, just interrupt me when you've got audio, video, and all that jazz. But what we're thinking about is that young people could have projects that um, that create services, that the intention is that it would be an honoring of the whole person, right? That this isn't like tutoring. This isn't about just education. This isn't about just resume writing, but that this would be about like the whole person being honored and validated and supported. Thinking about having as many like fun and interesting ideas as possible, focusing on things like social well-being and connection, a sense of belonging, and that we would be hoping to see opportunities to amplify youth voice, to have opportunities for young people to be empowered, to maybe have some leadership development or some growth opportunities, some mentorship, that while they have an idea and that they're the ones who are going to pull it off, but that they would have support from the organization to be able to do all of those things. And that whatever, probably someone in the organization has access to the credit card and they're going to need access. They're going to need to have adult support that includes that mentorship and whatever other like opportunities for learning and growth that those young people might have. Paul, I see you are back. I'm going to go through the last couple of bullets on suggested scope and then pass it over to you. So the other pieces that we are thinking about is that we want to be sure that we are supporting through these grants tribal, cultural, and community youth-centered activities and programming. So really creating opportunity for some projects that are maybe adjacent to what we currently fund through our grants. And then also looking at opportunities to support youth through financial compensation, stipends, honoraria, and that could be paid to the young people while they are in the planning part of it. And they could be right. So imagine that you've got a group of young people and they want to come up with this idea, or they've been percolating an idea and they just need funding for it, that they would be compensated and supported during their planning, as well as using the dollars to actually like execute on an idea. So a for instance would be maybe you've got a group of young people who have access to a farm, and they want to do like a farm to table dinner, or they want to do like a Thanksgiving dinner in their community, that they can have that idea and they can use the dollars to purchase food, and also that the dollars from the grant could be used to pay stipends to the young people who are involved in the planning and pulling off the actual event. So and I give that example just so that you can have something in your mind of like kind of what we're thinking about. And then in a moment, we'll be able to get into kind of the dollars of it, right? That if how many dollars we are thinking each of these grants could be. Paul, are you back?
I sort of. I'm on my phone. My computer decided to just lose all the mouse and everything. So I actually don't think it's the fact that I'm traveling. I think it's my computer just decided to take a nap. So my apologies. And if you were wondering, yes, I am sitting in a parking lot in Napa, Idaho. So thank you, Sally, for saying that I'm doing some engagement out here on the east side of. It's beautiful out here on the east side of Oregon when I get there. But yes, I don't know, Sally, if you mentioned that through the conversations that we had with all of our youth committee members and just here listening sessions of talking with folks is where we really came up with these ideas around the scope and project type. So just want to open the floor up for questions or thoughts around it. I saw a bunch of hearts and things. It's cool to see the phone. The hearts look really cool because you can see them easier. So, but I can't see the whole screen. So Taneja, I will look to you to, if people raise their hand or have questions, would be great on that side. But any questions or thoughts, Did we miss things? I will open up to the whole room in that if people have questions or thoughts. All right, I see a thumbs up. Nate, I can see you. There's only a couple people I can see. So, all right. I do want to recognize Daniela Avila joined us. She is part of our youth committee as well as our council. So appreciate Daniela you signing on if we haven't already acknowledged that. All right. Well, Sally, I think I turn it back to you since you did my first part. I love it. That's great.
All right, I'm just gonna keep talking. It'll be great. Also, the other magic of having other YDO staff on the call is that they can be monitoring the chat as well. So if anybody catches Paul, Jared, Tanisha, Melissa, if you catch anything in the chat that we should address, please don't hesitate to include that. Oh, Mike asked an excellent question in the chat that I just caught. Mike's question, can we ensure these grants are open to youth from immigrant and refugee communities? And so that leads perfectly into the section that I'm going to go through here, and that is about eligible applicants and limitations. So YDO as an agency serves young people ages 6 to 24. So that's the statute says that's our age range. And so we are proposing that these would stick with that same age range, the entirety of it. Some of our grant initiatives are limited, that they do only the younger ages or only the older ages. And so we're proposing this would be open to all ages, and that we would open the grant applications to our existing grantees. And Paul, now I'm panicking. Do we go into detail about that anywhere else?
No, we don't. Do you want me to take that one?
Sure, go for it.
Awesome. And the reason that Sally is saying that we're suggesting that we open it to our current grantees only is because of the burden around insurance and the timeline that it takes to do that insurance. And it's I will admit it's not our favorite solution yet. That's kind of where we go back to the long-term goals around how are some ways that we can find to get these dollars out in the time frame, but then also continue to find ways to manage that side of that. So that's kind of the short of that information. There's obviously a lot more detail to that that Sally and I and Jared live, but the idea is try to, yes, it's a limitation, but to create as limited as least number of barriers in terms of accessing these dollars through the eligible entities. I'll turn it back to you.
Thanks. And a lot of that is tied to, we want these dollars out the door as quickly as possible. We want folks to have time to use these dollars. And so by limiting the grant applications to those who are already grantees, we kind of fast forward through a lot of the logistical steps that we go through when we have our regular big RFAs. So we are looking at offering each of our grantees, each organization would be allowed to apply for one of the youth-led grants. So if an organization has 2 grants from us, maybe they have a re-engagement grant and a job and work readiness grant or a community investment grant, they would just count as one organization, and each organization would be allowed to have one application. And that would be open to grantees that have community investment grants, re-engagement grants, job and work readiness. If our Safer Communities for Youth grants are executed at the time that these grants become available, then those grantees would also be eligible. That will only be a handful of additional folks. And then also, we're looking at opening the grant application opportunity to those who have funding through the juvenile crime prevention funding that YDO has. And so those would be the Title II grants, and then also counties and tribes. And so we're already in agreement with all of who I just named. And that means that they would be able to then move quickly through the procurement process, be able to get the executed grant agreement, and then be able to access the funds and run their project. When we are looking at limitations or limits on how these dollars can be used, it will also mirror our existing funding limitations. So they can't buy a car, they can't buy land, they can't use the funds to create scholarships, they can't use the funds for anything that would be like beyond June 30th. 2027. So you can't just like buy a stack of gift cards, right? And those are regular limitations that we put in our standard RFAs. Also, limitations, folks would not be able to create other support funding pools or scholarship funds. Uh, Dollars have to stay in state, so can't be paid to people who are outside of Oregon. And also, the funds can't be used as a fundraising source. So don't use these funds to run a fundraiser. Paul, is there anything else in those limitations? Anything else we need to say on that?
No, I think those are kind of the standard limitations that if you have a grant agreement with us or have read a standard state grant agreement, that's kind of the pieces. And I think that it will also make a little bit more sense when we talk about what we're proposing for funding wise. Nate, I learned something. If I watch my phone really closely, I can see the chat and then it disappears really quick. So I saw yours. Thank you. I will admit, I saw half the sentence, but I think I know what you meant, that you're not opposed to this. So I appreciate that. I don't know. Any other questions or thoughts about that? I can also cover the funding proposals that we were going to talk about. I see smiles on the screens that I've been seeing, so this is good on that. So I'll jump right in. And how do we get a list of existing grantees? We have that, most of all of that published on our website. It would also be something that we can address when we launch these. So this would be a part of the release side of it. But all of I think it's still probably listed as intent to award. We have not updated it to current grantees, but we will update that on the website. I think was that the whole question?
Yes.
Awesome. Perfect. Thank you, Sally. I see that you put a link in
Yes.
there.
Yeah, so what I just dropped in the chat, this is from our website, and it does include 25-27 community investment grants, but I don't believe that it includes Title 20 unless that just got updated like this week.
It does not yet because we're still
Yeah, so there will be a few more eligible organizations beyond what is listed there. Paul, I'll pass it back to you.
Sounds good. I should note though too, if you are a subcontractor of YDO Growth, that would not qualify you for that to apply for the grants unless you have a direct award from us in terms of that. And again, all counties and tribes are also eligible, which then that kind of leads us into the funding estimate. So as Sally said, we have just over 150,000 invested in are able to invest in this project. What in talking kind of like what the feasibility of this is. Sally and I are proposing that we consider the $5,000 award range. And you can probably see that's also why we're trying to do some of the eligibility limitations, because we want people to be in place and not go buy very expensive insurance that is for a grant that's less than what it would cost for insurance. The reason we're doing that is if we divide the funding that we currently have available by 5,000, that gives us about 31 awards as an option. If we take and do the set aside, which we traditionally like to do when we have dedicated funds towards the tribes, that would put us right at, doing my math right, 22 grant opportunities for folks into that. And so you can imagine if we went down to say a $2,000 grant, that would increase the number of awards, but that also is going to increase considerably the opportunities to do that. We also want to make sure that these funds have enough dollars to, one of the things I heard in conversation was we probably should be able to at least give a stipend or pay the adult that's helping you do these projects. And so we wanted to make sure that the funds are at least large enough to do a project or to do an activity while also finding the balance of that. Because if we went up to say $10,000 award, we're going to really limit our awards because obviously we'd cut that number in half. So what we're recommending is to do around up to a $5,000 award limit. That's not saying if you wanted to apply for 2,000 that we wouldn't allow you to apply, but we'd put the cap at 5,000. Questions or thoughts? I cannot read that. Sally, I'm going to give you that chat. I could not read it. I saw Josh add something.
Mm. The question, is this only open to grantees who've received funds during the current biennium or are grantees who have received grant funds further in the past eligible? Excellent question. What I hear in that question is who counts as a returning grantee? And so in our big RFA, returning grantees are those who have been previously funded as well as those currently funded. For this, what we're looking for is to limit it to folks who are currently funded because their insurance policies are already on file with procurement, and that is the most laborious and time-consuming process of getting dollars into the hands of the grantee. And so for this, and again, that's what we're talking about, like the short-term goals, like what we're aiming to do just for this second half of this biennium is a little bit more limited. I love Nate's use of the word pilot, that we're going to look to see like how might this shake out and will it work the way we're hoping it will work so that in the next biennium in 25-27 that we would be able to open it to additional grantees, additional organizations, and that we would broaden the scope of who is eligible to apply.
I'd also add,
Perfect.
Sally, and thanks, Josh. I see the thumbs up. I'd also add, this is quite a learning process for us as a team. We've done some like small grants in the past, but these are actually the smallest grants that we've done to the broadest population. So we're going to be learning our systems as we go through on that. So just to kind of add a little bit more connection to doing a limiting pool on that. So with that, let's see. Funding amounts. We'll talk a little bit more about timeline in here in just a minute. But I think that I covered all of my. The other piece that we would say about the funding amounts is to keep the insurance similar to what we are, if not the same to what we currently have with our grants. We are suggesting that we do this as a reimbursement once a deliverable is given, and the deliverable is the technical language of the grantee submitting something as evidence that they had made the project. And for this one, we're actually proposing that it's the project plan, so that we meet with the group, grant managers would meet with the successful applicant, and then we would work through the project plan. Once that's submitted, then we could release the funds for them to do the project. So the changing how we do this to be able to get those funds out so it does have the least amount of impact on the organizations is what our goal is to make this happen. Bethany, I see you shaking your head. I think you know exactly what I'm saying. So awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, just to reiterate that, like, we are not building these that the young people have to like run the entire event and then request reimbursement for it. But that instead the project plan would be complete and then those funds would be available for disbursement. It's not disbursement. That's not right. That is, I believe,
reimbursement.
It's reimbursement. This is not a disbursement grant, but that the intention is that these dollars would be available early in the process instead of the young people having to like float this, because that would be an undue burden.
Perfect. Sally, it's up to you for timeline.
All right. Thank you, Nate, for the comment. I love that something makes sense at this point. Timeline. We have a couple of choices of like when we can open the grant application. The earliest that we can possibly open it would be June 15th. And that is because the YDC council meets just a couple days prior to that. And the YDC, like the whole council has to vote to approve the process. So the earliest that we could release the RFA would be June 15th. Our hope, though, is that the window of when the RFA would be open would be quite a bit smaller than it has been for our big RFAs. That would be just about 30 days. So the folks could apply and then really quickly know whether or not they received the funds. And so what Paul and I are proposing is that the RFA would actually open in mid to late August and then be open until mid to late September. And that would allow for folks who have maybe young people aren't as involved in the summertime, or schools and school districts that have some downtime between June 15th and July 15th. We want to make sure that everybody has the opportunity to see these grant application opportunities, apply for them as needed, and also that the young people have to be involved in this. And so thinking about when young people are more likely to be engaged with the organizations, that's when we're looking at like mid-late August to mid-late September. And that would be when the RFA would be open. If we aim for the RFA opening August 24th, and Paul, I'm guessing that must be like a Monday. I don't know why the 24th. We'll just go with that.
I just put down a date to make myself think mid to late August.
All right. So mid to late August. Um, then with it closing mid to late September, the timeline then would be that the minimum qualifications would be complete by like the 1st of October. So if we close applications on, let's say, September 24th, then we need a few days to go through minimum qualifications. And that's where staff and the youth committee would be looking at ensuring that young people were definitely involved in the process, that the entity that applied is definitely eligible. Those are the minimum qualifications, and that's consistent with all of our RFA processes. Once minimum qualifications were done, then we would get into the actual like decision of who would be receiving the grant awards. And Paul is gonna get into those details about how that can be done. But our hope then is that everyone would be notified and funds would be released by like the 1st of November-ish, right? And so the timeline of if we open these, if we get approval in June from the YDC, then we will begin advertising and then we will open the RFA in mid to late August, closing it in mid to late September, so the dollars can be available by like the 1st of November, give or take.
So before I go, any questions on the timeline that we're proposing? It's kind of one of those like top-up things that I didn't realize until I actually started looking at the calendar of how tight that was. To be very transparent on that side of it, but we are proposing that we shorten the opening window, and I'll talk about where and how we can support that in a different way. But any questions around the timeline or like concerns if we waited until that late August range to open it? I see Bethany. It looks like you're put a comment of could it be a slightly longer window?
Yeah, so just if one of the things is youth driven, well, I know there's certainly organizations who don't have as much interaction in the summer. The summer is also a really dynamic space to have like intense planning or get a really engaged group. So I wonder if having at least really like what it is going to include available for summer planning time and then a window that goes into early September so people can make that transition and complete it. I think that would be the benefit to having a longer window if that was something you'd consider.
I think that's a great suggestion for it. One of the things that I think is new for us is if we do this later window too, we can advertise it. Like the the equitable opportunity to apply is really when we have the window. But what we can do is that sorry, I'm getting a random call. That's amazing. This is fun. But we can share the information as much as procurement will let us, front loading it, and then also we could consider like, does it make sense to maybe keep it open to 40 days or something like that to allow that time to engage, for sure. So I think that's a great suggestion for us to think about, because I want it to be as open. Because I can only imagine hearing about it, trying to get youth involved in something, and then have something ready to be in the application within 30 days after the beginning of the school year. Like that's a challenge too. So I appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Any other comments or questions in the chat?
Nate just echoed Bethany and pointed out that given school schedules, it could be challenging to engage many youth when many are preparing for the school year to start or actually starting. And so, yeah, particularly thinking about those who might be changing schools or just working through that transition time, that, to Bethany's point, to open the RFA a little earlier and just have it open a little bit longer to create more opportunities for folks to plug in.
Definitely. Right. And one of the things that we kind of leads into this next topic is, I think this discussion leads into the next topic that I have, which is around a lottery concept. So what we are proposing is that we set this window of time that anybody that's eligible can apply, right? And then we do, so there's kind of two layers of, it's not great naming conventions. The minimum qualifications, like procurement has to go and make sure that they would be they are a current grantee, for example, right? So there are some very basic minimum qualifications. But what we're proposing within this lottery concept is that we put a team together. It could be YDO, it can be part of the youth committee, that people read an initial kind of outline of the project and the fact that whoever's applying has attested that young people are involved from start to end. All the things that we're looking for, those basic lines, that we do this like initial review, so to speak. And if the team has a majority of votes that say, yep, they meet those qualifications, then they go into what I would call a lottery. That then we would randomize however many applicants applied, and they would be randomly selected from that group from across the state. We are proposing that we probably hold off on the regions. And we've had some feedback around, well, do we know it's a problem, right? Do we know all of those pieces, right? So we'll need to kind of see where that comes. But with 22 awards, a lot of times we want to think through on the regional assignment. So we're proposing that we take away the regional assignment, and then whoever applies within that window and meets that like initial review would go into a random lottery. And the reason we do that, or the reason we're suggesting that is that we really take away that, like, oh, I didn't write a strong enough application. No, you attested that young people were involved in it. You attested that that young people have been in the creation of it. This is the vision of a young person. So it's less about the writing and more about involving young people into it. And we select that. The other advantage of doing that is that if we don't get enough applications in that first application, we can leave it open as a first come, first serve, and we don't have to evaluate. If they meet the minimum qualifications, they could be awarded. So for example, we get 10 applications during that window. I hope we get more. I want to be very transparent. This is a public meeting. I hope we get more. But say we got 10 applications, they all meet that initial review. We could automatically award them, and then we would have a pool of money left over for anybody that applied after, and we would keep it in a first come, first serve basis. Meeting those initial reviews, they could automatically be awarded. So it really frees up and takes away a lot of those kind of roadblocks that we've seen in the process, especially because they're smaller dollars. So, you know, somebody could be like, oh, in December, we have money left, and they could apply and possibly get it in that way. So I'm going to pause for that. I probably should look at my notes to make sure I didn't miss anything on that. I didn't look at those at all. All right. Any thoughts or questions? And Sally or Jared, if there's comments in the chat.
Yeah,
Just
Mike commented. Oh, go ahead, Bethany.
Oh, just a mathing question. The number of current grantees, I know someone asked about the list, and so like there's the various buckets of, and then counties, and then like if everyone applies, 7.
I'm freezing.
Apply.
Sorry, Bethany, you cut out just a little bit. So it sounded like you were asking, what are the chances of getting the award in a lottery?
No, well, like how many could apply is the max number. It's gonna be more than 10, Paul. Totally.
Yeah. We hope it's more than 10. We really, really hope it's more than 10.
Yes.
So zooming out just a little bit, early on, one of the conversations we had was more along the lines of, what if everyone who is our current grantee got it? What if we and procurement said you can't do that, and so this is why we're not doing it. It is not an option that we would just gift each existing grantee additional funds. Procurement said absolutely no. But when we looked at that, there were a couple things that came up. One of them was that the award would end up being around $1,500, and so that's not very many dollars. Doesn't go very far, and that it wasn't clear that it could stay within the lane of youth leading it and being supported for them to actually implement and execute on the project that they came up with. So when we were looking at okay, well, if we have bigger grants, then we will have fewer awardees, but we would also then be able to learn from the proposals and the applications that come in to then be able to use that information in the next biennium. And so that was where we kind of settled on $5,000 being the sweet spot, and that means that there can be a one for each, a grant for each of the tribes, and then an additional 25 additional grants. So there are about 85-ish eligible organizations that have YDO grants. The deal with the counties, they are eligible, and yet the the organizations that we work with, like on a county level, particularly around juvenile justice and Title II funding, they don't do direct service. So they don't have the connections to like a team of young people to actually be able to meet the minimum qualifications for what's required in the grant. Does that help answer the question? So yes, there are about 80 organizations that could apply, but that when we and that when we look at those 80 organizations, the way that we have awarded our grants in this biennium, this is funny, now my phone is blowing up. It is my college kid because he doesn't know that I'm in a meeting. When we looked at who was eligible, part of what we're looking at is that due to our funding constraints that we've had this biennium, our grantees are fairly well distributed across the state already. So when it was time for us to fund, or for us to do the awards for job and work readiness, we only had enough funding to do the regional awards plus a couple extra. And likewise for the community investment grants, that it was regional awards plus a few extra. So when we think about the organizations that are eligible, they are spread across the state in a manner that we find to be fairly equitable and a good distribution. And also that there are, yes, there is a strong likelihood that more than 10 folks will apply. And also that if folks apply and they get an award and they are not able to spend all the dollars, that then that's where it comes back to Paul's comment about the funding window and then being able to release funds on like a first come, first served basis that would then, right, that we would have like a waiting list of folks who would be, so everyone who is in the lottery who doesn't get funded at first, then we would be able to figure out an equitable way if additional dollars become available for additional awards to be given.
And just to add to that, Bethany, like I think roughly when I'm roughly doing the math, because I think you were asking like how many grantees do we have? I think when we count counties, I think we're just over 120, 130 range, right? So, you know, it lottery wise, it's a decent, it's better than other lottery, the actual lottery, right? So like that's the idea of, and part of the reason why we're saying we don't really want it to go into like making a judgment on what the project is. We want to provide opportunities for it. So, yeah, I think it's great. And did that help answer that question? And I want to also acknowledge time. I see a head nod. Perfect. You're just on my screen. You're like one of the six. So this is great. All right. So with that, Sally, I'll just kind of keep going because I do want to make sure we get through this.
I also think we have accidentally already covered the next section.
Yep. So what my suggestion is that we ask the youth committee members if they would be interested in doing that initial review. That's one of the suggestions, to keep the youth committee in, but we also recognize that's a time piece. It would be a pretty specific window. Once we launch it, we would know and we'd be able to set those dates that people can go through, and it wouldn't be an in-person meeting. It could definitely be a virtual thing that you read through the attestations and the basic information of what the project is. And so that would be a way that we want to ensure that our youth committee continues to be involved in this, in terms of that. Awesome, Nate. I love it. And so we would set up a process around whoever's interested in it. My suggestion to do that would be, obviously Nate volunteered, and so you're hooked on it, Nate. Right. But we would also then pull the other committee members and see of their interest of being on that committee, and we would set up a process accordingly to make that happen. Let's see. Did I miss anything, Sally, on that?
I don't think so. I think we're good.
All right. I also feel inclined to just say that the other proposals that we didn't really go through is a really, really modified report out window that because this is youth involved and youth led, we would like our proposal is that we really it's the youth design how they want to talk about their project. They could do a PowerPoint, like the successful grantees can do whatever they fits within the realm of what they're doing. And that would be something we would work out during the project plan of like, okay, so how do you want to present this? Do you want to come to the council meeting? Do you want to take a video of the activity? Do you want to take pictures of, so we would work with them very specifically so that it keeps at that youth intended level and the adults that are involved are really there to help support the project on it and trying to keep it as focused to the scope of what youth really want in the project. So I saw a few head nods on that. So, but I think that's something noted. The other piece that I feel really important to note is we have not consulted with the tribes. We are proposing this piece. One of the things that is really important in terms of doing anything with a set aside or anything with the tribes is that we consult directly with the tribes, and Brian and I will take that forward to some of the government to government options that we have to get some input on whether or not it would be of interest to the tribes or those opportunities within it. So that just want to be very clear that we do need to do more work with the tribal consultation and conversation around that work. So I see a couple hearts because I'm assuming some people know and do that with the tribal partners they might have in their area. So appreciate it. Sally?
Yeah, Bethany has a great question, and I apologize because I was just distracted by the college kid for whom youth, all of them, all the time. Did we already cover Bethany's question about?
I didn't see it. Sorry.
The youth. This is such a good question. Bethany, you want to just say it, what your thoughts are?
The question.
Uh-oh.
See a questionable internet. If you get to have a project planning phase between YDO staff and recipients once they're lotteried in, have an opportunity to be part of that where you're like designing deliverable, right? Like, tell us more about the project. What does this look like? How can our experience help influence how you might go about making this the best possible project?
I think your question is are youth going to be involved in the project planning and moving forward stages? You cut out very unfortunate time for me. Was that what the question was, Bethany?
Partially, but also like committee members, would they be able to opt into having some?
Yeah, absolutely. So the facilitation of the grant would obviously fall in terms of the YDO staff because that's we're paid to do that. But I think we want to have it as open as possible to our committee members of learning it, whether it be seeing a project, whether it be part of the project plan. To go back to like the application and the project plan, one of the attestations that I'd like us to consider is that we basically put a attestation for the applicant to say, hey, youth will be involved in the whole process, including the project plan. So ensuring that they're in that conversation, like we're not mean. Hopefully people don't think we're mean people as YDO staff, but we would want to just engage in it. It'd be a very simplified process of like, hey, let's learn about the project and help them kind of think through what those report out could look like. Because one of the things that I do know about youth get very excited and want to do this amazing report out, which would be great, right? But maybe we want to make sure that they can also do it without overwhelming themselves too. So we want to kind of try to balance that. So hopefully we can engage in that conversation. And I'd want to keep our youth committee members involved in any part of the process that they're interested in for sure.
I'll also say that as the person who does a lot of work on our convenings, I love the idea of like an optional virtual convening where everyone who has gotten this grant award has the option to come and be in a conversation around the project plan and let those young people just like ideate and run with it. And that we would then also be able to say, you absolutely can like do that amazing, cool thing. As a reminder, the bar is actually down here. So we're thinking from the reporting standpoint that like we want, let's say people create like maybe there's a wellness space and they want to gussy it up and they want to decorate it. Maybe they want to paint a mural. and the youth have this idea and the youth are going to paint this mural. Great. Send us a photo afterwards. Like that would be sufficient reporting. And so again, there's this balance of these are not large dollar grants. We do not want anyone to feel like they need to do this like extravagant reporting process. And so we're looking for flexibility both in what these projects are, but then also what the reporting could look like. That maybe young people do, maybe they want to do a little video. Great. That would be amazing. And that would be really also very valuable for us, for the staff to be able to learn from like what can we do in the next biennium? Like what can this look like in the future using this first time as this pilot to be able to come up with the best possible opportunities so that these dollars get out the door and meet the desired purpose of young people getting to run programs that they have identified where there's a need, they have identified a potential solution, and that they're actually running it. Also, I see the time.
So I'm gonna hit pause. Want to just make sure any of our youth committee members have any comments around it, these ideas. All right, let's see. Oh, Nate, I see your hand.
Hello, Nate Latangio, council member speaking. I just wanted to say overall, just like I really like all of the intentionality and everything that's gone into this, and just all the considerations of the reporting and how they can share the idea in a variety of formats. Sounds exactly like what I would have in mind and what I would advocate for. So yeah, all of it, I'm excited. And let me know if anything from like reviewing things that come in or supporting with the project planning sessions. I have the capacity, so I'd be more than happy to help support with any of that.
Awesome. Appreciate that. So I think we kind of need to, before we move on to the last two very quick bullet points, maybe a straw poll. I can't see the screen, but maybe just a thumbs up for our committee members and actually attendees. Does it sound like something that would make sense to move forward for this general process approval presentation at the YDC meeting in June? So, see a thumbs up. Yeah, there. Wow, that's really cool.
Fancy.
Yeah, that's amazing. I see lots of thumbs going across the screen, so that's exciting. I think in general, this is a unique project, and I'm excited to be able to share this out with it. So I am going to bump us to the next piece of the meeting. I want to make sure if there was anybody that had public comment. Tanasia, I'll turn it to you if anybody said that they wanted to make public comment.
No one has reached out to me. Melissa, has anyone reached out to you?
Nope, not that I've seen. Thanks for checking.
All right. I probably should have mentioned that at the beginning of the meeting to reach out to Nature and Melissa. So if you were wanting to make public comment, please raise your hand. I realized that I forgot to say that at the beginning. The other piece that I think we're going to need to kind of postpone until our next committee meeting, and we'll work on scheduling that after the council meeting. But just a couple things that we're going to need to think about: the youth committee meeting structure. Obviously, this is a big project. We'll move a process proposal to the full council vote in June, and then we will circle back and try to maybe schedule another youth committee meeting via a doodle poll, or I don't even know what it's called now. I know that we have a new system of doing that. So we will try to get another committee meeting scheduled to talk more about the structure on that side. On that, a couple just quick announcements. Youth committee members, or actually, sorry, official YDC members, you will be receiving an email once I get further details about National Youth Employment Coalition's Youth Days in DC. It's in Washington, DC, where we're up on the Hill advocating for positive programs, both in Oregon as well as nationwide. It's a great training for any of our, well, really anybody. I've been there once, and we have sent representatives from the council the last 2 years. So note that that is coming. I just don't actually have any specific dates on that coming forward. I see a few people. Thank you for attending the meeting on that side. Sally, any other? We're not going to be able to do a recap because we are already a minute past. On that side, we won't be able to do a recap of the annual forum for NYEC that Daniela and I attended, but we'll try to do that at the council meeting as well.
Yeah, I think the only other thing that I had on the list was, do we need to decide today who of the youth committee members can present at the YDC about this conversation? Or is that something that
Yes,
we can do offline?
I think that's good. Any of the committee members be interested in helping me present the process?
I'm not
Nate?
opposed to helping. I'm gonna say I'm not
Okay,
opposed to helping. I might need a recap when the time comes, but maybe a little something in the email to hit the with okay key points here, and then yeah, I'd be happy to help.
awesome. I appreciate that, Nate. With that, no public comment, raised hands, nothing. All right, I know Yoselin had to sign off. Appreciate everybody attending and the input. If you have thoughts, anybody on the call, please just email us. This is, like I said, a very exciting project that's been a lot of fun so far working with, and excited to see where it goes. All right, Nate, I think you
Everybody?
might be the only person left. Do you mind officially closing this meeting?
Yeah, not entirely sure how to do so, but I'm just gonna say I adjourn this meeting. Thank you, everyone, and to the next time.
Awesome, perfect. That is exactly what was needed.
Perfect.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for coming.